Hey there, my name's Carlos Whitaker. It is Thursday, February 20th, 2025, and you're listening to episode 3 of Human School. I'm so glad you are here. And I'm not going to lie, I'm vibing with the new music. I don't know about you guys. I know it's a little less hype, but it's a little more me in this season. If you have been keeping up with this podcast for a long time, you'll realize that it's still named the Carlos Whitaker Podcast. We're just in like a season of human school. Everything is human school to me right now. I'm just learning how, continuing to learn how to human, which is my book title from 2 books ago. And that's what we're going to continue to do this season, is continue to learn how to human from different perspectives. I am learning how to grieve. I think on Instagram this week, I called it grief school that I'm in. And it just hits me 24/7 like a ton of bricks. I'll be fine for 2 days, not even crying. And then bam, I'll smell something or I'll see something or I'll hear something or I'll touch something that reminds me of my dad. And, it's hard. It's hard to grieve. There was a lot of anticipatory grieving with my dad that I thought was preparing me and was going to lessen the grief that I have right now. But no, it didn't. That was its own separate grief. It's like, okay, sweet. And also I think one of the things that surprised me about my father's passing is I used to really be scared. I'll call it scared of death. And really, it was Heather's mom. When she passed, I was there. I'd never been in the room with a body of someone that I've loved after they passed. And I was there for a few hours with Heather's mom. And it was so peaceful. And actually so fascinating to see something that had a soul and life in it. And then it's just gone. And then the same thing happened with my dad. And, I actually share if you guys want to go on my YouTube channel, if you're watching this on YouTube, you can go look at my vlog that I uploaded this last week. And I documented the last 7 days of my dad's life and kind of walking him into eternity. And there was just something magical about it. And I can't describe, yes, it was horrible. It was sad, but it was also really hopeful. Mortality, we don't think about it. We don't think about death. We don't think about our own deaths. We don't think about our loved ones' deaths. We don't think about that in our current culture like past cultures used to all the time. And they would think about their own death like they would think about their own birth. Like they would talk about it. It was just something normal because it was always going to be happening, and it's still always going to be happening, right? None of us can cheat it. It's coming. So I feel way more ready for it. And I feel more like there's more need to talk about it. And so today, that's what we're going to do with my longtime Insta Familia member, Sarah Broadus. Sarah is our Human School guest lecturer today. And she's going to be talking to us about mortality and life and death. And what does it look like to be living with something that the doctors have told you this will probably be the thing that ends your life sooner than later. And how do you parent with that? What does that do to your perspective? What does that do to your kids' perspective? Sarah, on Mother's Day weekend, 2021, they found a tumor in her uterus, and they were pretty sure it wasn't cancer. Everything seemed great after a hysterectomy, and then 2 days later, doctor said it was colon cancer. Not only colon cancer, but stage 4. And so she tells us her story today. She's living with stage 4 cancer, but what it means to be living with stage 4 cancer versus dying of stage 4 cancer. She drops two truth bombs on us, like she feels like she's a better parent now that she has cancer. She was honest and upfront with her kids about mortality. Death doesn't scare her. but it does make her sad for her family. And, she actually says something that it's a blessing to know that her days are coming to an end. I think so many of us feel and we think and we live as if our days are not numbered. I'm just telling you, this conversation today was extremely, extremely healing for me. Sarah, you are brave. Sarah, you're about to become so many of the Carlos Whitaker podcast, Human School podcast listeners' favorite person. It's gonna be good. It's gonna be helpful. You know what? I normally have this pensive, like, oh, can you hear that? Nope, that's not it. Hold on. This one that leads into the interviews. No, feels like it just needs to be the same one. Yeah. So, friends and family, Carlos Whitaker podcast listeners, Human School attendees, please help me welcome our guest lecturer, Sarah Broadus.
Okay, Human School listeners, today's guest lecturer on Human School, who we are going to get curious about is, I'm going to call you, Sarah, my longtime friend. Can I call you my longtime friend?
Absolutely.
Okay, can we be on this level of longtime friendship? You have been around my internet world long before the Instafamilia.
Yeah. We are OG friends. Yeah.
Yeah. How do you even remember how we first connected?
I do not. I want to say that you were probably still performing worship music.
Oh,
and
wow.
I connected to you somehow like that. And then we just became internet friends.
Singer Carlos.
Yeah.
Not a lot of people know that. You have what I believe is a story that most people do not want to talk about mortality. Most people do not want to talk about, when I say people, let me just say Americans. Because I do feel like this is a uniquely American thing. You are living every single day with stage 4 colon cancer. Am I correct?
Colon cancer. Yeah.
Okay. And so where I want to, the conversation can go a whole bunch of different ways, but what I want you to do is maybe take us back to May 2021?
Yep, May 2021.
When you were first diagnosed with stage 4 colon cancer. Like, what do you remember most about that moment and the days that followed?
So it was Mother's Day weekend of all weekends.
Okay. Yeah.
And I had an emergency situation that put me in the hospital.
Okay.
And we knew that there was a tumor in my uterus area. And we were pretty sure it wasn't cancer. The doctors were. And so we decided
pretty sure that it was not.
Was not cancer.
Okay.
So we decided to wait a week and then do a full hysterectomy because I already have 4 kids. So we were like, let's just do that. We did the hysterectomy. I went home. Everything seemed to be great.
Okay.
And then 2 days later, the doctor called and said, you need to come in. We have some results. And when he said that, I knew that he was going to tell me I had cancer. I was expecting him to say ovarian cancer because it runs in my family.
Okay.
And when we walked in and he said, it's colon cancer, I took a deep breath and I was like, I have no idea what colon cancer is. I'd never heard of it. It was not something that, you hear breast cancer, you hear ovarian cancer, you never hear women being diagnosed with colon cancer. And so my first reaction was, okay. And he said, it was found on the backside of your ovaries. So I have a little bit of medical background and I knew that meant that it had spread.
Uh-huh.
And so, obviously, when you get told you have cancer and it's spread, you're going to die. That's the first on your head. But I had to hold it together at that moment because my mom was with me.
Okay.
My husband wasn't with me. My kids weren't with me. It was just my mom. And she was losing it.
Yeah.
And so, I had to hold it together and we got home. And the first thing you do, I think any person that has cancer or gets diagnosed will tell you, is you go to Google and you start reading. And Google had me dead in 6 months.
Okay.
And so I was like, well, okay, this is not what I want to hear.
Google, FYI, everybody, Google, if your left pinky is hurting, will have you dead in 6 months. So.
Yes. So I was like, okay, great. So weeks followed and I had appointments after appointments after appointments. And I found out that I, in fact, was not dying and that stage 4 cancer could be treated. And we didn't know what that was going to look like because you respond differently to chemo. Each person does. And so my oncologist said, it's going to be a battle, and it's going to be a spiritual battle. It's going to be a physical battle. And you've got to be ready for it. And I said, let's go. And so that was kind of like the intro of the summer. I turned 37 that summer. And I spent that whole summer in battle with surgery after surgery. I think I had 3 surgeries that summer.
You did?
Yeah. And then we started chemo immediately after surgeries. And so that's where the story starts.
That's where the story starts.
Yeah.
Something that you said, I think a lot of people, it may be the first time people have heard anyone actually say this when you said stage 4 cancer. How did you say it? You said stage 4 cancer doesn't mean that you're dying. Is that what you said?
Yeah.
Unpack that for the person that's like, no, it does. It means that you're dying. What do you mean, Sarah?
So, it's scary. Obviously, but there are so many medical advancements now where you can live with stage 4 cancer like you live with diabetes almost.
Wow.
It's called chemo for life. And they figure out which chemo regimen works for you. And you can continue to take that regimen or immunotherapy and stuff like that. And you can live your life as normal as possible with cancer. And that's what I've been doing for the last 4 years. So,
Wow. Was that an important mind shift for you at the beginning to like how important was that moment where you switched from, oh no, I'm not dying with stage 4 cancer, I'm living?
Oh, it was huge. It was huge because like I said, I have 4 kids and my youngest at the time had just turned 3. And so being mom, I've got to dance with him at his wedding. I've got to graduate. And so to know that I had the opportunity, if things went well, to live with this disease, I was game. I told him, I said, whatever we got to do, I'm here for this. We're going to do this. And we've done that. We're over 100 rounds of chemo, 15 rounds of radiation, 3 surgeries, 2 hospital stays. But for the most part, I'd say 90% of the time, we're kicking butt.
Really?
Yeah.
So, wow. 100 treatments. That's a staggering.
Yeah, 3 different lines of chemo. So in colon cancer world, there's not a lot of options for treatment. It's not very well funded by the government. And so we have 3 main lines, and then there's a few smaller lines, and then a few clinical trials. And
when you say lines, what do you mean by lines?
So each round of chemo, so there's the first line is called FOLFOX, and it's usually the one they go to, and it's it's an IV chemo that you get, and you have to wear it for 48 hours. It comes home with you. And then you have another line called FOLFIRI, which is a little bit different. And same way, you bring that home for 48 hours and you wear a pack. And then I'm on the 3rd line, which is a pill form right now. And so I get to take pills for 2 weeks, and then I get 2 weeks off. And and that's your lines of treatment.
Okay. And those lines, do you go through them one at a time? Like, have you done those other 2?
Yeah. So you go through until they quit working. The first round worked great, and it got me to no evidence of disease after 10 rounds.
Okay.
And then I was pretty much cancer clear for 10 months. And then we found out that my cancer came back.
Okay.
And so we started line 2. And then line 2 did not work at all. It made the cancer spread a lot. And so we started line 3. And line 3 seems to be, at the moment, carrying it and keeping it at bay, at least keeping it stable.
Okay. And so you're saying there's 3 lines. What happens if what happens if line 3 is not working?
Yeah. So if line 3 doesn't work, like I said, there's a couple newer treatments that have been in the area, I guess, the market, if you want to say, for about 2 or 3 years. If those match my biomarkers, which is something that they test your tumor for, I'll get to try those. And if not, I would go to a clinical trial, which those are treatments that are still being explored by researchers. Or I would continue, maybe stop treatment for a little bit, or you can sometimes re-challenge a line, which means you'll go back to one of the original lines to challenge those.
I would assume that something like this changes even how you perceive time.
Yeah.
How, I think two questions. How has this shifted you? like your relationship with time, the present moment, the future, and how has it shifted your family's relationship with time? Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely. So pre-cancer life, I loved to work. I worked all the time. We made memories when we could. We just did life and we were always busy. And once cancer entered our life, it really slowed down.
Yeah.
You feel like time is going really fast. I feel like the last 4 years have flown by. But each day we wake up and it's a new day and we get a new chance to make memories and be together. And you really value that time with your family. I feel like so much more. Like you don't I hate that it took cancer to get to that.
Sure.
But every day I wake up and make sure I tell my kids and my husband that I love them. I feel like I'm a better parent with cancer because I'm a lot more patient because I don't want to be remembered as the mom that went crazy on him all the time. I feel like a lot more patient mom. And then, you really just value each day more. That time is so important to you. Even on the bad days when you feel awful, you want to get up and you want to try to, at least make somebody's favorite meal or read a book with your kid or something. So you really value that time with your family more, I would say, once you get that diagnosis, which hopefully my students will learn today to do that without the cancer diagnosis. Yeah.
Yes. If there's one thing I know about the Carlos Whitaker podcast listeners, it's that most of you have some sort of child in your home, whether it be a baby to an adolescent, to a preteen, to a teenager. Most of you got these kids or grandkids in your home, and I've got something that can help them stay healthy. It is Hiya. What in the world is Hiya? Hiya is a chewable kids vitamin. When I say kids, I mean kids from 0 to 18. And it fills the most common gaps in modern children's diets to provide the full body nourishment your kids need with a yummy, yummy taste. When I say yummy, that means that the 5-year-old's going to love this taste that they love. Formulated with the help of pediatricians and nutritional experts, Hiya is pressed with a blend of 12 organic fruits and veggies, and then supercharged with 15 essential vitamins and minerals, including vitamin D, B12, C, zinc, folate, and many others. So listen, every single batch is third-party tested for heavy metals and all kinds of stuff that we don't want in our vitamins. I love that Hiya actually ships you these vitamins so you don't have to go to the store. If you forget about it, you don't run out of them and your routine continues on. So this is what I want you to listen to. This is super important. I know that our kids, sometimes they don't love their greens. Well, guess what? Hiya now has Kids Daily Greens plus Superfoods, a chocolate-flavored greens powder designed specifically for kids. It's packed with 55 whole food ingredients to support brain power, development, and digestion. All you got to do is scoop it up, shake it, and sip it with milk or any non-dairy beverage for a delicious and nutritious boost your kids are actually going to love. We've worked out a special deal with Hiya for their best-selling children's vitamins. Receive 50% off your first order. To claim this deal, you got to go to hiyahealth.com/humanhope. This deal is not available on their regular website. Go to hiyahealth.com/humanhope and get your kids the full body nourishment they need to grow into healthy adults. If there's one thing that in 2025 I decided to drink more of, it's water. And less of, it's alcohol. I'm drinking so much more water. I probably only had like 3 drinks of alcohol. And it's like February 18th now. That's crazy. But I'm drinking so much water that my poor 51-year-old bladder is always going to the restroom. But guess what? It is healthy for me. And I'm actually drinking the healthiest water I've drank in a long time. Why? Because it's coming through my Aqua True filter. Listen, I know and you know that drinking water is important to staying hydrated because 60% of our bodies are made of water. But if you're like me, you just don't trust the tap water. Listen, I'm not talking about our metro city government. I'm not saying they're trying to poison us, but I'm just saying we can make it healthier, right? So I know you want your kids to grow up healthy and strong. I want mine. I know that we want to drink the healthiest water available. That is why my family, literally upstairs right now on the kitchen counter, has our Aqua True water filtration system. Now listen, Aqua True purifiers use a 4-stage reverse osmosis purification process. And their countertop purifiers, which is what I have, it works with 0 installation or plumbing. That's right. Like literally, we just pour the water into it and then the water comes out purified. Okay. Long-term exposure to high concentrations of PFAS can potentially lead to adverse health effects. We don't want none of that happening. The filters are affordable and they're long-lasting. Okay. We've actually never changed our filter and we've had this thing up there for 8 months. The filter is still good. Okay. Best of all, the water tastes fantastic and you don't have to worry about any of the other harmful contaminants. I can truly taste the difference compared to every other water filter that I've owned. I promise you that. Ask my wife. She can taste it as well. I even use it for my coffee. So listen, AquaTrue comes with a 30-day money-back guarantee and even makes a great gift. Today, the Carlos Whitaker podcast listeners receive 20% off any AquaTrue purifier. Just go to aquatrue.com. That's AQUATRU.com and enter code Carlos at checkout. That's 20% off any AquaTrue water purifier when you go to aquatrue.com and use promo code CARLOS.
You know, what I'm appreciative of is that you don't have to get stage 4 colon cancer in order to take this lesson that you're teaching us and put it into motion. My last book, Reconnected, I fortunately was able to spend 8 weeks in a very slow living way where I did feel like every small, tiny, everyday thing felt so significant, you know? And what I'm hoping people are hearing is that, you are doing this every single day, but you wish you would have done it every single day before.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right?
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, just like I said, like I love to work. Like I've worked since I was 15 years old, but there's so many days now I wish I could go back and be like, man, like I wish I hadn't have done that. Like I wish I, had taken that opportunity to, do what my kids wanted to do that day. And, you have those regrets, but I'm making the most out of it now. So learn that lesson real quick to make sure that I adjusted. And I mean, you just want those memories and you want that time with your kids and your family.
Yeah. How old are your kids?
So the oldest is 18. The next one is 16. Then I have an 11-year-old and a 6-year-old.
Okay.
So first grade to college. Yeah.
First grade to college.
Yeah, it's crazy.
How do you approach conversations about mortality with your kids?
Yeah. So with the oldest two, since day one, we've been extremely honest with them. They knew mom had stage 4 cancer. They had already experienced cancer at a young age. My mother-in-law had stage 4 breast cancer for 10 years. So their first few years of life, they knew cancer and she passed away from breast cancer in 2012. And so they had already experienced that. So we've been extremely honest with the two oldest since day one. I never wanted them to hear anything from anybody else. I wanted them to hear it from me so we could discuss it as a family. So we could, they could ask the questions, they could cry if they needed to. And it's been a very open and fluid conversation with them from day one.
Okay.
My 11-year-old, when she was around 9, asked the question, like, Mom, are you going to die? And, I very honestly told her, well, baby, we're all going to die. And, and unfortunately, that's part of life. But, right now, Mom's doing everything she can to stay alive. And that means that we're going to take this medicine. And on the days that I don't feel good, we're going to let Mom rest. And, it's been very honest with her as she started asking the questions. And then my 6-year-old, he's just now starting to get it. He sees, some days Mom's on the couch a lot. Like, if you're like, do you not feel good today? Do you have a tummy ache today? And, I'm like, yes, baby. And we'll talk about death as it appears. Like, I think there was a Bluey episode, and, he's talking about, Bluey. I know when you started watching Bluey, I was like, Carlos, you're gonna cry. It's a lot. But there's an episode where, Mom and they're like up in the sky and stuff like that. And he goes, is she in heaven? Like, and we kind of started those kind of conversations with him then, this is what this is about, and, sometimes mommies go to heaven and, and when that happens, you'll be sad, but that's okay. You have to have those conversations as they come naturally with each. Right? But my oldest two, since day one, they've been in the game with us and had those conversations early with them.
Yeah. And you mentioned, that, and I think this probably was, probably not only impactful for you, but for your family, that there was a day that you were gifted called One Day to Remember.
Yeah.
And I think many of us know, what's the version of this for kids?
Make-A-Wish.
Make-A-Wish. People are, we've heard of Make-A-Wish, but I'd never heard of One Day to Remember, which I think is freaking awesome until you mentioned it. Can you tell us about that day?
Yeah.
Your One Day to Remember experience, like what made it special, and like what just impacted you and your family about that day?
Yeah, so we got One Day to Remember. It's a nonprofit that focuses when the parent has late stage cancer, and they create a day for you just to make memories with your kids. And so we got to go to the Georgia Aquarium, and we did a backstage tour with the dolphins. And so we got to like play football with the dolphins, and we got to like learn how to make them do all their tricks and how they eat, and we got to see everything up close. Like we got to touch them, and it was just amazing. And then we got to spend the whole day at the aquarium getting like VIP treatment and tours. And we got to sit in the special zone area when they do the big dolphin show. And then afterwards, we had a family photography session, which every One Day to Remember comes with a family photography session to capture those moments with your family. And then we had a dinner at the Sugar Factory because that was what my kids had picked. You kind of get a say of where you want to eat. And they wanted the fancy milkshakes at Sugar Factory, so that's where we went. But that day allowed us to kind of step out of the cancer world and just into life together and not think about anything, because every One Day to Remember is fully funded, so we didn't have to pay for anything. And it was really nice to be able to be at the aquarium and say, yeah, we can get a stuffed animal because they sent us funds for this. Yeah, like just to be able to say yes, because when you're a family with cancer, those extra funds aren't always there. So it was really nice to be able to have that day to be able to do and just make memories with them.
Yeah, that is awesome. I have a question about days like that, because I think all of us that are going through any sort of trials, it feels like it's hard to not place whatever trials we're going through front and center of everything that's happening in your life. Even if you have a good day, it's hard to not just keep going back and thinking about oh my gosh, but like I'm going through this. Even my day is great. Like, were there moments even on the One Day to Remember that you would be having a great moment with your family, and then your brain goes to, but the reason why we're doing this is because I'm, how do you battle and navigate those brain games?
Yeah, they're a lot. They're a lot. So let's be real honest. In your brain, you have the side that I'm a very positive person.
Yes, I can feel that.
I err on the side of, people call me toxic positivity because I think happy thoughts all the time. So, yes, you're having this amazing day with your kids and you're like, wow, look at them smile and they're getting to do all this really cool stuff. And then that back voice is like, but you're here because you have stage 4 cancer and, you're making memories. You got to think about that. And how I battle those days is when those dark thoughts or the negative thoughts come in, or if I've lost a friend in the cancer community and I'm like, that could be me next. I tell myself their story is not my story, because everybody reacts to cancer and treatments differently. And right now in my story is good. And, my treatment is working and I feel good on most days. And so I just have to, I tell myself, we're not going to talk about that. We're good. But not that I don't want to think about it, because obviously it's a reality, but I kind of just push that around and I try to pull out a happy thought or a positive thought. And, my kids are happy right now. That's what we're going to focus on, is their smiles and that memory. And we're not going to think about the negative stuff. And then you get home and you're exhausted and you're tired and you're like, I overdid it. And I forget I have cancer sometimes. But it was worth it. Those happy thoughts were worth it.
That's amazing. You now, very inspirationally for me, have transitioned from someone that got to experience that to now you're working with this organization, correct?
Yes. In April, they posted a job opportunity on Instagram. And it was very you need counseling, event. And I'm like, I have a master's degree in counseling. And I have 20 years in the event industry. And I was like, immediately, I was like, will you please hire me? That I will do this for whatever costs the money, because I already have another job. And so they were like, sure, let's talk about it. And they brought me on as an outings coordinator. And so now I get to work and create these days for these families. And it is the most rewarding job ever.
Is it?
It is. It feels a purpose. You get to talk to them and hear their stories and what they're going through. and, all sorts of different types of cancer and how long they've had it. And then you could say, what do you want to do with your kids? Like I want to take them to a Raiders game. And so I get to work with the Raiders, and I got this family on the field, pre-game with the Raiders, and they get all this swag. And then,
That's so cool.
I want to go, we just want to go to, I just had one that was a band competition, like one of the national band competitions. And I reached out to one of the bands, and they were like, absolutely. And they just blew the whole experience up for me. Like once you start talking to these companies and organizations, they want to help you. And so they make these days even more elaborate for these families. And they got like swag, and they got to be on the field, and they got to sit in the inner circle of the band as the band warmed up. And I mean, it was just, it's so much fun to be able to take their small ideas and be able to expand them and help them create memories. And I wrote down a quote that you had said in Moment Maker, that it's about making someone feel valued through that moment. And every time I'm doing this job, I think about that. And I'm like, I get to make these moments for these families and let them feel valued. And like these parents go through so much, and I know on a personal level what they're going through. And so I'm giving them this opportunity to feel the value back, because sometimes when you have cancer, you feel more of a burden than valued. And I get to allow them to stay to feel valued and create memories with their kids. So
how much do you see that they are so appreciative that somebody that they're working with is actually going through what they're going through?
Oh, it's become a bridge to talk to them, because they know that especially the colon cancer families, because I know their treatments. They're like, I'm on FOLFOX. I'm like, been there, did that. And we can have these tight relationships. And, sometimes they'll just text me late at night and be like, hey, I'm up, are you up? And I love that I get to use my counseling degree in this aspect, because I get to talk to them, through transitioning to hospice, or, the husband, if it's a caregiver and the husband's having a rough day, like we get to talk, and they know that I understand on that level what they're going through. And so I feel like it's just, God gave me this life and this purpose, and he gave, I have this cancer, and he's allowing me to use all of these skills that he's given me throughout my whole life to help these families. So,
well, I think that's beautiful. I think just because you've been around for a long time, like, in my world, I've seen you. Well, first of all, you may be the first person that has quoted Moment Maker, my first book, to me in a decade. So thank you for that, everyone. I did write a book called Moment Maker in 2014.
I preach about it all the time. I tell everybody they need to read it.
That's awesome. I love that. I want to ask you this. I want to ask you, Sarah, are you scared of dying?
I don't think that I'm scared of dying. I think as a parent, you obviously don't want to leave your family. You don't want to think about the days that they have to go through without you, like getting married, like the big things, like you want to be here for that. That makes me sad. And if I cry, it's okay. I cry all the time. It's just what I do.
I just thank you for answering the question, because there's a lot of people that are.
Yeah, but death doesn't really scare me. I feel very content to where I know where I'm going to go. I've been a Christian my whole life, and my relationship with God is probably stronger than it's ever been over the last 4 years. And so I think it's more of a sadness than a scared. Just because you know that you're gonna miss out on these, and you're not gonna be there for these kids. And I constantly think about things that I can do for them now, that they'll have those memories for later on. Like we're redesigning a dollhouse that my grandchildren will play with. Like, so me and all the kids are designing a dollhouse right now that one day my grandkids will have, and they'll be able to tell, like, my mom made this dollhouse for you. And so we're doing things like that now together that they'll have in the future when I'm not here. So,
Wow. Thank you for answering that.
Yeah, absolutely.
This show is sponsored by BetterHelp. Listen, I love my therapist. When I say love, not like a love for like a friend, but a love because what has happened in my life. I'm a better husband. I'm a better father. I'm a better son. I'm a better coworker. I'm a better boss. I'm a better all these things because of therapy. I have benefited extensively from therapy, not only when things are bad, but even like looking for the positive things in my life, right? Like we often hear about red flags that we should avoid. But what if we focus more on looking for the green flags in our relationships, in our coworkers, If you're not sure what they look like, guess what? Therapy can help you identify those green flags and actively practice them in your relationships. Then you can embody that green flag energy yourself. So whether you're dating, married, building a friendship, or just working on yourself, it's time to form relationships that love you back. BetterHelp is fully online, making therapy affordable and convenient. And also they serve over 5 million people worldwide. You get to access a diverse network of more than 30,000 credentialed therapists with a wide range of specialties. And you can easily switch between therapists at no additional cost. Discover your relationship green flags with BetterHelp. Visit betterhelp.com/humanhope to get 10% off your first month. That's BetterHelp, HELP.com/humanhope.
There's going to be people that are listening to this that are facing their own diagnosis right now, or supporting someone who is. I'll be honest with you right now, and we may or may not put this in the show, but Heather's actually not in California with her grandma right now, who's in the hospital because her house burned down, and she's in California with her mother, who was just diagnosed with stage 4 cancer. So her mom and her grandma are both in the hospital at the same time, and this is new for us. This is new for us, and it's pancreatic cancer, and it's scary and it's bad and it's fast and so we're literally 3 weeks into this, and it's already gone so fast and downhill so fast. And I think what I want, so I mean, you really can talk to me.
Yeah.
But you can also talk to the general person that's listening to this, supporting someone who is facing their own cancer diagnosis or whatever diagnosis that mortality is suddenly in their face. What would you want them or me or Heather to hear from you right now?
I think that, when we think about the end, what have we done up to that point? My life has been very full for a 40-year-old woman. I've had great jobs. I have an amazing group of friends. And I think when we think about mortality and we think about the end, it's sad for those that we leave behind because they have to continue life without us. But our job is to, as the person, ending life, make each day, even the last few days, like make them what you want them. Continue to smile, like continue to live life. Life is good. Even in the midst of pain, life is so good. Yeah. And you have the opportunity to take these days and to hold on to them. And, you hear all the time people talk about like, oh, the last days. Like, I think about my last days all the time. Like, what do I want those to look like? What conversations I want to have? And I started doing that, now every day. And so as we're facing mortality, anybody that's facing mortality, like life is good. It's sad for those we leave behind, but life is good. And you have the opportunity to know that, your days are coming to an end. And I think that's a blessing. Like as a planner, like I tell my husband all the time, like I feel like, God gave me this opportunity because he knew I was a planner and that I could plan the way that I needed to. But you have these days and you know that they're coming to an end, like use them for, whatever you need to say to somebody. Like, if you haven't told somebody in a long time that you love them, like use these days for those. Use as you're facing these last few days, like every day is good, but use it to do what you need to say. Like don't leave anything on the table. Don't leave any hugs, anything unturned, that's just how I look at each day. Like any day could be your last day. Every day needs to be treated like it's the best day. And and
there's it's just maybe cheesy, but there's a Tim McGraw song.
Yeah.
Live like you're dying.
Yeah.
I went skydiving, Rocky Mountain climbing.
Yep.
Rode 2.7 seconds on a bull named Fu Manchu.
Yep. I don't want to skydive. Like
totally.
I am getting a tattoo with my daughter in a couple weeks.
Are?
Yeah, like
okay.
we kind of have like a goals list. We don't call it the bucket list. We call it the goals list because we have goals for the year. But we make these plans, we do these things, but I don't want to jump out of a plane. That doesn't excite me. But definitely, live each day like you're dying because you are. With cancer diagnosis or not. And I hate that Heather's having to go through this because I know how hard it is.
Yeah.
Seeing her.
Yeah. That's so good. Two more questions.
Yeah.
Looking back on everything, your diagnosis, your treatments, your family, your work, your faith, how would you describe what it truly means to live?
Ooh, that's deep.
Mm-hmm.
I would say I describe what it means to live.
Mm.
I mean, I don't know. You wake up, you
Yep.
you get excited that first of all, you get excited that you wake up every
Yes.
morning. Every
Come
morning,
on.
even when that alarm goes off at 4:20, because I wake up when my husband gets ready for work. I'm like,
Yeah.
ugh, but yay.
But yay.
But yay. I get to get my kids up for school,
Yes.
and I get to take them to school, and I get to come home and work a job that is fulfilling. And I'm allowed to do it from home, which is a blessing. I get to do these things, and that's just kind of how I look at life. Like I get to do laundry. I get to clean the toilets. Like I am able and capable of doing this, and most people take that kind of stuff for granted. And I'm just like, that's how exciting I am about getting to live life. Is I get to do these things. And on my really good days, like the other day, I got to walk in the snow and watch my son sled for the first time in his entire life. Like,
wow.
We had the Atlanta snowstorm, and I got to watch him sled down the hill.
Yes.
And I got to walk there. And some days I can't do that, but I got to that day.
So,
when you're looking at living life, like I get to do these things, and I get to do them every day. And
what a perspective shift! Literally from have to get to.
Yeah, you get to do it.
That really is the shift into living. Is from moving to get to, from I have to do this, to I get to. You're right. I mean, I know that was a big question, and I know I just want to let you know I think you accidentally stumbled upon such a paradigm shift for a lot of people. I think today they can literally switch from existing to living.
Yeah.
By going from have to get to.
Yeah.
That's so good, Sarah.
Thank you. You get to do these things, and, you take them for granted every other day. And then when you are faced with this could be my last Christmas, I get to put up my Christmas tree. I get to buy these presents. I get to do these things. And it's just kind of how I focus each day is getting this opportunity to do all this. So
that is so good. One more question. This whole year for me is helping people be curious. Whether, people get to be curious about you and your journey and all these other conversations I'm having in human school. What's something that you're curious about right now?
I'm curious about so much stuff right now.
Yes.
I am in my learning. I would love to be back in school again.
Yes.
But my husband's like, no, that was a lot of work. I'm curious about learning other languages. I'm curious. I'm loving learning from other people. I've watched too much TikTok, but I get invested in other people's lives because I love details of other people. So I love to get to see how they do their day-to-day stuff. And, I just learned the greatest trick ever, which
really?
This needs to be shared.
Okay.
Parenting, the worst thing about parenting and being a mom is deciding what's for dinner every night. And I learned from a lady on Instagram to ask my kids what they wanted for dinner. And so each person gets to decide one night of the week, and I never have to make that choice again.
Well, look at that.
And we've been doing it for 2 weeks, and it has been the greatest thing ever. And I just learned that. I was curious about how do I make this easier? Because it's some days I don't want to eat because of my treatment. And so I'm like, I don't want to decide what dinner is. And I heard her say, well, I just ask my kids and they make the plan. And I'm like, that is so simple and so genius.
Totally. I love it.
We started doing it. And I'm like, it's great. But I'm curious about all sorts of things and constantly trying to learn things. And, I just read Sharon's book and learned a whole bunch about history and all this kind of stuff.
Yes.
And I'm just constantly trying to always evolve and
I love it.
Grow.
Well, you helped us evolve today, and I am so grateful that you shared your story with us today.
Thank you for having me.
Woo! Thank you, Sarah. Come on, people. How good was that? I feel ready to live after listening to Sarah. Sarah, your story is a gift, and I'm so appreciative that you are part of my community and that you've been around for a long time. And I pray that and believe that you're going to be around for a long time more. You got a lot of living to do. And so do we because of what you have taught us. Well, that is another episode of Human School in the books. You know what really helps me? Really helps me. People ask me all the time, how can we best support you? Listen to the podcast, share the podcast, subscribe to the podcast, whether that be on YouTube, on Spotify, on Apple Podcasts, wherever it is you listen to your podcasts. Listen and share it. And just let me know that you're listening to it. I mean, I see all the thousands of numbers that come in, but I like to hear from you. We'll see you next week on the next installment of Human School.